Produced by Roger Corman,
Right.
the master of schlock.
Yeah. And famous for giving a lot of filmmakers their starts.
Yes,
from
very
Coppola,
much.
Scorsese, Jonathan Demme, a lot of Ron Howard. A lot of these guys come out of the Corman School. And the thing he would always say is, like, if you make a movie good enough for me, you'll never have to make a movie for me ever again, you know?
Yeah.
It was sort of very low stakes, and he got stuff made. So he makes the first one. It was his attempt to capitalize on the Jaws craze. This film has no creative members in common with the first one.
So just Roger Corman was surprised by Piranha doing well. Piranha did really well.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's sort of the problem with Roger Corman is he was just making these. He didn't have a major sense of what was actually going to do well or be
Well, he's
good.
also like quantity
He's
over
churning 'em out.
quality.
He's
That's
churning
the
'em
idea.
out.
It's a factor line.
So
right.
Piranha actually did well, but in his contract, he didn't have he didn't retain the rights. The rights went to like the executive producers, and
including this Italian guy. Was he one of the producers?
they took it to the Italian guy.
Interesting. So the last people who had any creative involvement sold it off to other people. Mm-hmm. This film's an entirely new team, which is kind of like Zombie 2, which is like the Italian sequel to
totally different.
Dawn of the
movie.
Dead. Right. Yeah.
Jeff Shetterman, who is one of these guys, took it to Ovidio Asanitis. Asanitis. Who said he would put up the money, and the one thing he wanted was that the fish could fly.
Well,
Piranha 1, fish are in the ocean. Piranha 2, the fish have wings.
Spoiler, he got his wish.
I mean, yeah, kind of.
He wished for a flying fish, and he got it. The fish have wings in this movie.
So first, they hired a guy called Miller Drake, who is another Corman guy. Apparently, the director came up to him and said, "Want to direct the movie?" And he said, "Sure."
I'm free next Tuesday. Why not?
They took him to the producer, and the producer said, "Fine." I'm getting this from a very good Entertainment Weekly piece from 2010 that was like an oral history of all the Piranha movies.
Okay.
Like, including the remakes that they later made.
Yes. This was for the release of Piranha 3D.
Now, he wanted to bring back some of the cast from Piranha 1. He wanted to bring back the lead scientist guy who gets eaten up. He wanted to have him, like, be all, like, scarred and, like, have holes in his face or something.
To which I say, cool.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sounds real cool.
And, like, he got, like, makeup guys, like, working on this. And it seems like Asanitis, the Italian producer, was just like, forget it, and fired him. So then they call up James Cameron, who's like another guy.
Yeah.
Like he'd worked on a second AD on like some Corman thing, and there was this story about him, and I like this story. And this is the first seed we have of James Cameron. Now, some people say it's apocryphal, but they say it's true in this.
Okay.
That he was working on, he was working on some Corman, as a second AD on a movie called Galaxy of Terror. And he had to direct some worms, like, writhing around in the ground. And they, like, roll, and the worms aren't moving. Like, they have these worms, and they're not moving. And so he, like, rigs up, like, an electrical cord into the dirt.
Yeah.
And he's like, when I say action, turn it on. And, like, they turn it on, like, shock the worms, and the worms start writhing around. And this was, like, what convinced them, hey, this guy, James Cameron, he's got a future in the movie.
He's a problem solver.
He could make worms move around.
And he is also, I mean, the legacy of James Cameron is this is one of the most confident men in history.
Yeah.
He knows what he wants and he gets it done. I'm on the IMDb trivia page for Piranha 2: The Spawning, and there's a really interesting trivia fact here. The piranhas in this sequel developed an additional skill which they did not have in Piranha 1978. Period. They could fly. Period.
So
that's a trivia fact for this movie.
So, I think in last week's Under Siege episode, we briefly talked about Star Trek Beyond.
Yes.
And how when they hit pre-production, like the one thing Justin Lin was like sure about was like, I really want the Enterprise to crash in this movie. That has to
I want them to tear it apart.
Yeah, that has to be a big set piece.
Yeah.
And it really does seem like this Italian guy, and this was not uncommon especially in the 70s, these sort of like exploitation movies funded by Italian studios. Yeah. The Italian guy's like, look, I got the money for you. And I mean, it probably cost like $1 million to make this movie, something like that. But listen. They've got to fly. They better fly. Those piranha better fly.
What's like the famous John
Just
Peters
FYI,
story about the giant
piranha,
spider?
Yeah, John Peters and his giant spider,
just
which he eventually worked into Wild Wild West. But he wanted it in like Superman.
Right.
Yeah.
He wanted to get a giant spider in a movie. He became obsessed with this idea of there being a giant
metal spider.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, yes,
sure.
of course. You like things big.
Yeah, you and John Peters, like, if that had ever happened, you two were just united somehow. That you would have been holy terror.
Could you imagine John Peters and Ben running a studio
Can you
together?
imagine just Ben running a studio? That'd be great.
We need to start a studio.
Just imagine him like sitting in a chair and he's like, I like it, but bigger. Have you thought about this? Bigger. Wet. Make him wet.
Not
right.
wet enough.
These
I'm soaked, baby.
These are callbacks to our old episodes. So, guys, if you're jumping on with James Cameron, listen back. We've got so many great episodes.
God, and what a good entry point this is going to be for new listeners.
Piranha 2.
The Spawning!